Okay, that hasn't quite all burned off, but it's burned down quite a bit. Let me put some more in. And I'll just keep this up until I got them all burned. This is going pretty quickly. The wind is blowing in a favorable direction. Well, hello scrappers, Mike here. Welcome back to my channel. What do we got going on today? We've got another job for my friend Johnny. Got some more keyboard Mylars here. Now I did not process these. Oh, they are so stuck together. There's something really sticky on them. So I did not process these with the rest of his keyboard Mylars because of how stuck together they are. And how sticky they are. They're covered with something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what these came from. Some sort of control panel on some sort of machine. But they are not like the normal keyboard Mylars I processed for him before. And then there's this one over here too. So anyway, those other keyboard Mylars I processed by chopping them up and putting them in a bucket with dilute nitric acid for a couple of weeks. And I got a fair amount of silver out of them. I'll put a link to that video in the upper right if you haven't seen it. Now, a lot of people in that video said, why didn't you just burn those Mylars and process the ashes? Burn the Mylars. You should have burned them. Yada, yada, yada. This went on for I don't know how many different comments.
Cool. Fire, 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 fire.
Well, I don't normally like to burn stuff because for a couple reasons. First off, you can wind up with a bigger mess than you started with a lot of times. Some kinds of plastics are glass filled, which gives you all kinds of problems when you burn it. But also, we're a working farm here. And normally, we've got a big crew of farm workers out here. We've got animals. We have neighbors. There's another farm on one side of us and yet another farm on the other side of us. I mean, we have a lot of acreage, so nobody's close by, but there is a school nearby, and there is an apartment complex nearby. And if I make enough smoke, I know it's going to drift over in somebody's direction, and they're going to complain. So that's one reason I don't like to burn stuff so much. But I don't really see an alternative with this stuff. I think I'm going to have to burn it. But yeah, I don't really see an alternative with this stuff. It's just too sticky. It's multi-layered. Liquid's not going to get between those layers and dissolve that silver. So incineration seems to be really the only option. Anyway, today's a good day for it because it's a weekend. The crew's not here. There's nobody around. There's nothing going on. The wind's blowing just the right direction that I think I can get away with it. So we will burn these, and then we'll process the ashes and see how much silver we get out of them. Maybe I can just sneak this little bit in and get it burnt without anybody noticing or complaining. Okay? So let me get the foundry furnace set up, and we'll get this stuff incinerated. Alrighty. Let's see just how much stuff we've got here, because this looks like it's got some fairly heavy silver on it. Be worthy of calculating a yield here. Get it all in there. We got 516 grams. I hope that's showing up. Okay. So don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you you can't or you shouldn't incinerate this stuff. If you think you can get away with it, go for it. It's just in my situation, it's not that easy. You know, we got neighbors on all sides of us. Even though we have acreage here, the smoke does drift. Got the school over there. And, you know, normally there's a lot of workers around. The smoke is not good. It's going to be full of toxic stuff. It's going to stink. So I wouldn't want to subject those people to it. But I might just have a narrow window of opportunity this morning to get this done without annoying anybody. So I'm going to give it a try. All right, let me get set up for that and meet you over at the foundry furnace where we're going to incinerate this stuff. Okay, I got my long-suffering Dutch oven up on top of my foundry furnace there. I got some ceramic bricks around it to direct the heat onto it. So let me get this thing lit and get it hot, because I find when I'm incinerating stuff in it, like IC chips or tantalum capacitors, that if I preheat it, there's less smoke than putting stuff in cold and letting it come up to temperature. So let me get it good and hot, and then we'll start feeding these keyboard Mylars into it and getting them incinerated. Okay, the bottom of the Dutch oven is glowing red, so I think we're probably hot enough to get started here. Okay, there's the first batch in. Make sure it stays in. Then as the stuff burns off, I'll put more in. Oh yeah, we're making some nasty smoke. But at least a lot of it's burning off. If I put it in there cold, it would have smoked for 20 minutes before the flames caught like that and burned off most of the particulates. So it's bad, but not as bad as it could have been. All right, so we'll just let that burn down, and I'll put some more in. Okay, that hasn't quite all burned off, but it's burned down quite a bit. Let me put some more in. Right. And I'll just keep this up until I got them all burned. This is going pretty quickly. The wind is blowing in a favorable direction. It's blowing to the west. And I think it's going to disperse a lot before it gets to my west neighbors. Plus, they were up all night last night with a party, so I'll bet they're sleeping in today. It's early in the morning. They may not even notice. Alrighty, this stuff's burning off fairly quick. I think I'm going to make it through my window of opportunity without pissing anybody off. There's the last of it going in right there. Come on, stay in the Dutch oven. There we go. So once that burns off, we're pretty much done. The whole process has taken maybe 20 minutes so far. I still got to wait for this to burn down, but so far, so good. All right, the worst of the flames have died down, but there's a hard plug, a material in here now. Break it up. Yeah, I think there's some unburned plastic in the middle of that hard plug. I may need a better tool for breaking it up. See what I can find. Well, at least the smoke is pretty much done. I got my potato masher here. See if it breaks up these big lumps. Oh yeah. Get it all mixed up here. Make sure everything's exposed to the air. Ooh, it's hot. See if we can burn off any more carbon in there. It's all red hot, so I assume whatever carbon's there is going to burn off. And we'll just let it sit here at red heat for a while and see what we can burn off. Okay, this has been sitting here cooking at red heat for about 10 minutes now. I still get a little wisp of smoke off of it, but I think at this point I'm just wasting propane. So I'm going to shut it down. We'll let it cool off, and then we'll move on from there. Right now it's crazy hot. I'm not even going to touch it. Leave it there for a few hours. Alrighty, after that very thorough incineration, we're left with a not very large amount of material here after scraping it all out of the Dutch oven. But I'm looking at this stuff here and I note two things about it. Number one, there's some big lumps in it, so I'm going to have to break those lumps up somehow. I think for nitric acid to circulate around in there and dissolve whatever silver's there. Something else I notice is there's a lot of pieces, what looks like copper or bronze here. And I'm sure these were the connectors inside those little blue connectors on the ends of the ribbon cables. What I might try to do is, let me see if I can bust this stuff up into a fine powder. Maybe I can sieve those things out. I don't really want bronze in here if I can avoid it, because that's going to lead to metastatic acid, which is just going to gum up the works. It'd be really great if these were silver, but they don't look like silver. The color's not right. Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to grind this into a powder, and maybe I can sieve out those connector ends. Well, I've got out my long-suffering Hamilton Beach blender here, and we shall give it a try for grinding this stuff up. I'm going to try it dry at first and see how that goes. I'm not going to put all of it in. Just put a little of it in, and we'll see what it does here. That actually looks like, whoa, hoo-wee! Yeah, that actually looks like that might be working, but boy, we got a bit of a mess there. It's too dark for me to see what's going on in there. Okay, that looks like that might be working. I'm going to put the rest of this stuff in and give it a good grind. I hear the little bits of metal hitting the side. So that sounds like that's ground up pretty good. I think I'm going to wait for this stuff to settle now before letting the black cloud out too bad. I don't know if we're losing any silver in that black cloud. Probably not. I think that's probably just carbon. But I'm going to let it settle a little bit, and I'm going to go find a sieve. And we'll see if we can sieve those connector ends out of the powder in there, so we don't wind up processing them too. We'll wind up with some really dirty, nasty silver solution if we have to process those too. Okay, I've got my 16 to the inch screen here over a clean gold pan. Let's see, yeah, most of that black stuff has settled. Let's see if this screens out those pieces. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that screens it out nice. Look at that. Some bits of them went through, I'm sure, so we're not going to be 100% clean. And there's some big lumps in here. I'm going to put them back in the blender, because I'll show you what we're going to do next. I'm get any more big lumps out of here. We're going to make us a milkshake. That's right. We're going to make a chocolate milkshake out of this stuff. There's some little round balls in here too. They might just be bits of these melted, but they might be silver. So just out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to put them back in the blender. I know I saw another one. There it is. And there's another one. And there's another one. All right. Let's see if I see any more. There's a couple more. I don't know. It's probably just melted bronze, but I'll put them in here out of an abundance of caution. They seem lighter in color than these connectors. But Okay, that seems to be all of them. All right. Let me get this stuff back in the blender. My experience with this incinerated stuff is that it is very hydrophobic. It does not want to mix with water. It'll want to just float on top if I try to put it in water. So we're going to kind of force the issue here. Going to put some distilled water in. Yeah, it's all just floating on top. Give you a quick look with my phone. Yeah, you see that? See all that powder just floating on top of the liquid? Well, I think the old Hamilton Beach here has something to say about that. Let me fire it up and see if we can turn this stuff into a nice milkshake. I would normally add a surfactant like jet dry to this to make this stuff mix easier, but I don't know what that's going to do to our silver recovery. So let's just try it with mechanical agitation. Lots and lots of mechanical agitation. All right, let's see what we've created here. That looks much better. There's some really fine stuff floating, but it all seems to have sunk. I think we've created ourselves a milkshake here. Exactly what I wanted to do. All right, let's get this in here. Doesn't that look lovely? Oh, yeah. Nice. Get it all out. Using distilled water, by the way. Okay, there's some black powder still in the bottom of this beaker. We'll get it over here. And there's still a little bit in the gold pan. We'll get it over here. Less of it on me and more of it in the beaker. There we go. That's looking a little better. Okay. Nice. All right. Let's get this beaker in the fume hood and get some nitric acid on it and see how much silver we can recover from it. Okay, everything is stone cold this morning. In fact, it's getting towards middle of autumn here. Even in Florida, it's a little chilly this morning, so everything's nice and cold. There's no heat. Let's see what kind of reaction I get by putting some nitric acid on this stuff. Well, it's cold. Anything? Of course, putting the acid alone in should have heated things up some. See any bubbling, any fuming? Maybe a very slight reaction. I'm going to put some heat to it, and we'll see what happens when it warms up some. Just a little bit of heat. And we'll wait and see what happens. Now, as for this stuff, I really don't believe there's any appreciable amount of silver here. These things are either copper, bronze, or brass. And some of them are brighter colored than others. This one leads me to believe it's brass, while some of these others look like copper, and some of them might be bronze. I don't know. Maybe they changed suppliers in the middle of the run. Who knows? Anyway, for now, I'm going to keep this stuff. I'm going to put it in this beaker here and just set it aside. What I might do is put some nitric acid on it. I know it's going to be a mess. If there's bronze here, that means there's tin here, which means there's going to be metastatic acid. But we'll see if there's any actual silver in it. If I find any actual silver in it, I'll let you know, and I'll add it to what we're doing in there. But I really have my doubts. Alrighty, as this stuff starts to warm up, and it's barely had a chance to start warming up, we're starting to see some bubbling. We're starting to see some brown-orange fumes in there. So we've definitely got a reaction going on. We got metal going into solution with the nitric acid. So hopefully it's mostly silver. I did put a bunch of those little balls in there. They could be copper, they could be bronze, who knows what they are. Um, so we'll see. I hope I got most of the potential bronze out of it, though. I don't know why I'm so worried. This is such dirty solution. A little metastatic acid won't make it much worse. All right, we'll just let that continue to cook. Oh yeah, we're getting some serious brown-orange fumes now. So the reaction is taking off. All right, we're about 15 minutes in, and we've got a pretty darn good reaction going on. There's lots of bubbling, lots of fume formation. So I'm just going to let this go until all that bubbling and fume formation stops, and then I'll start adding more nitric acid to it with a pipette, maybe a couple milliliters at a time at the most, and see if that revives the reaction. If it does, I'll wait for it to die down again, then add more. And I'll just wait until my last addition of acid doesn't produce any more reaction. Then I'll know all that silver in there should be in solution. This is going to take a while, maybe a few hours, especially since I'm doing other stuff in the background. But we'll be back when I think the reaction is done. All right, this appears to be done. The last addition of nitric acid I put in produced essentially no reaction, no bubbling, no fumes. So I've turned the heat off. I'm going to let it cool down and settle. And hopefully we'll get a clear liquid on top as all that sediment settles out. In fact, let me get in here with a water bottle spritzer and get some of this stuff down off the side. And then once it all settles and hopefully we have a clear layer, we'll test it and see just whether we have silver in solution and whether it looks like there's a reasonable amount of it there. So it's late in the day, so I may just leave this until tomorrow and then check it out. Alrighty, it's the next morning, and just as I'd hoped, the gunge has settled out for the most part. There's some floating, but it's a layer on the bottom, and there's a layer of clear liquid in the center there. Blue, quite blue. So clearly there was some copper there, probably from those little bronze connectors. Some of them were probably mangled enough by the blender to make it through the screen and wound up in there. Or maybe some of those little balls of metal I put in there were actually the bronze. I don't know. But we need to test this and see if we've got any serious amount of silver in solution. So I don't know if those things actually had any silver in them, you know? Not until you test it, you don't know. So we got some water here. Going to put a little splash uriatic acid in it. You know, we don't know if there was silver there or how much silver was there, or if I'm just wasting time and chemicals on this. You don't know until you test. So let's get some of this clear liquid down here. Boom! Oh, okay. I would say that was not a waste of time. Yeah. Okay, so this stuff cooked down to not very much material, but clearly that material contains a lot of silver. So that's good. That's a good dark silver chloride cloud. In fact, it looks like it's settling. So that's pretty good. Okay. So the next step is to get this stuff filtered. Separate the gunge from the liquid so that we can drop the silver out of it. Nice clean silver. So let me get set up for filtration and we'll do that next. All right, so as promised, now that I have a free burner in the fume hood here, we're going to process these little connector ends here. I'm not hopeful, but I do happen to have a pretty good excess of nitric acid right now. So we'll waste some on these just in case there is some silver hiding in them. I put a fair amount of distilled water on that just because that's a lot of metal to dissolve. It needs somewhere to go. All right, I'm going to put some nitric acid on it. Might be better off, let me get the fume hood running. Might be better off with poor man's nitric, but I'm feeling lazy this morning, and like I said, I have a lot of this stuff, so we'll just put some nitric acid on it. Now, everything is very cold this morning. It's about 60 Fahrenheit out here. We had a front come through last night. First real front of the season here in Florida. We're not even going to make it up to 80 today for the first time since, well, last January or February. So, yeah, it's cold, so not much is going on. So I turned the heat up. We'll let that warm up and see what, if anything, happens. And I will get to filtering this other stuff. All right, let's get to filtering this blue liquid. I've got my ridiculously oversized Buckner funnel over here on top of my 1 liter filter flask. It's a little top heavy, but I use this funnel exclusively for silver solutions so that I don't cross-contaminate my gold solutions. So that's why I'm doing it this way. And yes, my pump still sounds like it's dying, but it's still working. I'm going to use it till it quits. Then I'll get my spare out. That is coming through looking really, really clean considering how dirty this solution is. That is nice. I like that. Excellent. I would consider doing a second extraction on this stuff, except that I got absolutely nothing as a result when I put the last nitric acid on it. I mean, nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I think we dissolved all the silver out of it. Once all the liquid goes through, which is about through, I'm going to dump the solids in there and give the solids several good rinses with distilled water to get all the pregnant silver solution out of them and down in here. So that's going to take a little while to do. So you don't have to watch it all. I'll be back when I'm done. So while we're pulling the liquid off of the stuff in the background over there, I'm sure you can still hear the pump running. We started to get a reaction going on here. We got some bubbling, starting to warm up. The liquid's actually starting to turn blue. I expect it to turn it a lot bluer as we dissolve those bronze, brass, or copper little bits there. Hard to tell what they were. The fire made them all kinds of different colors, unless they were all kinds of different colors to start with. But yeah, this is starting to work. I expect we'll know what they were actually made of if a lot of metastatic acid forms. Then we'll know they were bronze. So we'll wait and see. It's a good indicator of what they were actually made of. If the stuff cooking in the fume hood proves to have any significant amount of silver in it, and it's going to have to be pretty significant. I mean, just a trace, I'm not going to even bother with it. But if it has a significant amount of silver in it, I'll filter it through this same filter too. So we'll add it to this liquid. Not hopeful, but you know what? Waste not, want not. We'll just wait and see. I won't throw these filters out yet. They're still good for another filtration if needed. Well, that reaction really picked up in the last few minutes. I was off doing something else and came out and looked at this and like, whoa, maybe I need to turn the heat down a little bit. But yeah, look at we got nitrogen dioxide boiling off out of this thing. Yeah, I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit just so we don't have any kind of boil over issues if this keeps getting a little stronger. I have not put any more nitric acid on it, so it's still working with the initial charge I put on it. Look how blue the liquid's gotten. Yeah, I'll just let this go and see what happens. Now, there's no point in testing it for silver until all of the metal is dissolved on the bottom. And I'll tell you why. And some people are going to dispute this, but it's the truth. A lot of experience has showed me this. The nitric acid is going to attack the base metal first. Now, if there is silver in there, yeah, it's going to attack the silver too, but as long as there's still base metal there, that silver is going to cement right back out on the base metal. And it will go through this cycle over and over and over again until all the base metal's gone. The silver won't stay in solution until the base metal's gone. So we won't get any kind of accurate picture of how much silver is in here, if any, until all the base metal is chewed up by the nitric acid. Then the silver will be the last thing to go into solution, and then we'll know how much silver there is there. So we just got to let it go until it's done. Alrighty, this looks like it's done. Looks like all the metal's dissolved. I've got the heat off. We're just going to let it sit here and cool down a little, and hopefully all that milky white stuff in the liquid will settle out. I already see a layer of stuff settling out on the bottom. So yeah, I think we got metastatic acid. But once the liquid clarifies, we can test it for the presence of silver. And if there's more than just a trace, I'll filter it through the filter over there. And we'll add it to what we've already got. So, just a waiting game now. Okay, this stuff has had a chance to, well, mostly clear. And look, we've got a thick layer of metastatic acid on the bottom of the beaker, just like I thought. Those pins were bronze. Okay. Let's get a little bit of this stuff, put it in here, and the answer is there's a little bit of silver. Nothing like the other stuff. Yep, even with two big pipettes full in there, there's not nearly as much silver there as there is in this other stuff. But I've gone to the trouble of recovering it, so I guess I might as well just add it to this stuff over here, and we'll drop all the silver together. No, that's really not going to make much of an addition. I can always tell by how thick the cloud is how much silver there is there, and there's not much silver there. But that's okay. If we come this far, we'll do it. I'll get set up to filter it here. Get this stuff filtered. There we go. I'm going to try and leave the metastatic acid in the beaker because it will probably plug the filter hard. Much of it as I can leave in there anyway. Okay. Yep. Is it coming through clear? That's the question. Or is some of that metastatic acid coming through? That looks like it's coming through clear. Reasonably so anyway. Good. I think this stuff's just gassy, which makes it look milky. As soon as it hits that, it's clear. Alright. So as soon as we're done filtering, we're pretty much ready to drop the silver out of this and see how much we got. Alrighty, I guess it's time to recover the silver from this stuff. Now it's a very cold morning. As you can see, I'm wearing long sleeves, which is highly unusual for here in my Florida laboratory, but it's a very chilly morning. I wanted to get this started last night before it got cold, but I just ran out of time. So we're going to do it this morning. Now normally I would try to film a time lapse of this process, but I think it's so cold this morning that even a time lapse might not show much. So we're just going to get this started and let it sit, and if it takes 2 or 3 days to finish, that's fine. At least we'll get the silver, okay? Now there's also probably some unreacted nitric acid in here, which is also going to delay the process of the silver coming out of solution permanently. It may cement out and then go back in over and over again as the nitric acid gets used up, or until it's all used up. But I'll give you periodic looks at it, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe as the weather warms up later this afternoon, we'll start to see some serious activity in there. As it is, a very light coating of silver forming, maybe. Yeah, it's going to be slow in this cold. All right, I'm going to set this aside out of the way, and we'll just take periodic looks at it until it's done. Well, it's been, I don't know, 45 minutes maybe. I may have been a little incorrect about how long it was going to take for this reaction to get started, but really it is not spectacular. From the amount of silver that I saw going into that liquid, I expect to see a lot more hanging off of the coils by now, but it is cold, so it's slow. We'll just let it go all day, maybe a couple days, maybe 3 days, however long it takes, and then we'll see how much silver we've got there. All right, we're maybe 2 hours in. And yeah, we got a lot of bubbling up here. The temperature's increased a few degrees. We got a reaction going on. So that's the excess nitric acid in there. That's the excess nitric acid in there causing that bubbling. The liquid's gotten bluer as copper's going into solution. And the silver is not really accumulating that much because it's going back into solution too. And we'll keep doing this until all the nitric acid's used up. So it just takes patience, especially when it's cold. It's going to be a while. So we'll check in again in a few more hours and see what's going on. Well, I put this stuff out in the sun so it would warm up. And wow, have we got a crazy reaction going on in there. Ooh, brown orange fumes too. So there must have been a lot more excess nitric there than I thought. So I mean, hey, we're accumulating silver. It's just going back into solution and then coming back out of solution on the copper again. Hopefully, there's not so much excess nitric in there that the copper is going to dissolve away. I kind of doubt there is. I think after a few hours, this reaction will probably die down. That copper will use up a lot of the excess nitric, and then the silver will come out of solution and stay out of solution. Alright, we're just going to let it go. Well, it was another very chilly night last night. I put this out here in the sun again today. So this is day 2 out in the sun. And it's gone green. It's gone very, very dark green. Now that's interesting. It's gone from blue copper nitrate to green. Well, it's still got to be copper nitrate, I would imagine. Unless there was something else in there that we took out of that material. But we still got nitrogen dioxide bubbles coming up to the surface. It's too green to really tell what's going on in there. It's opaque. Might be a little bit of silver down there around the edge, the bottom, but I can't really tell. So, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I guess just gonna leave it until the reaction is finally done. Now in the past, what I've done to denox my silver solutions is added more silver to it. I have a lot of cement silver, and I could have added more to it to use up whatever nitric was in there, but that would have thrown off our yield unless I was really careful with measuring the amount of silver I put in, so I didn't bother. But yeah, when I've had when I've had solutions that were really overnoxed, sometimes this happens. They go dark, and it takes a long time for the reaction to stop. So I guess we'll just have to wait. Too late to fix the problem now. We'll see what it looks like tomorrow. Alrighty, it's been another day, and the weather's warmed up a lot. I still see some occasional bubbling in there, which I don't quite understand, because this process should have been done a long time ago. And also, we've got a layer of clear stuff, and then a layer of, I don't know what it is. Anyway, I'm going to test and see if we still have any silver in solution. I'm going to get some of this clear stuff. And right here I have my usual water with a splash of hydrochloric acid in it. And it looks like maybe just the tiniest trace of silver. So I would say we've got the silver out of this stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this and catch whatever silver's in here on a filter. I'll pull the copper coil out and we'll filter it. So let me get set up for that, and then we'll see. I don't know what the heck we got in there. I guess we'll find out. Okay, let me filter off this liquid, and we'll see what we've got in there. But first I'm going to pull out this. Yeah, anybody in the comments, feel free to let me know what causes this. Why does it go such dark green sometimes? Why is the coil so chewed up like that? I'm assuming it all has to do with just excess nitric acid, but I don't know if it also could be something we pulled over from those keyboard Mylars, especially those connectors I processed there at the end. Maybe I really shouldn't have mixed that little bit with the rest of this stuff. The liquid's coming over nice and clear. Not that that really matters. It's going to be a waste product, so should be silver on the bottom of this beaker. And there is some. Not as much as I was hoping to see from those Mylars, though. Yeah, not nearly as much as I was hoping to see. They looked like they had a lot of silver in them. Yeah. Yeah, see that? Not as much silver as I was hoping to see by far. But, you know, the test I just did showed that there's no more silver in solution, maybe just a trace, that's all. There was copper in there, so silver would have had to have been come out of solution through cementation. Some of this might be coarse silver crystals stuck on there. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think it's just coarse silver crystals stuck on the copper. I can rub them off and there's shiny copper underneath. Now they're all over my hand, of course. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the pump pull the liquid through, and I will rinse the silver in the filter a few times, and I'll give you a look at it to see how it looks. Alrighty, I rinsed this stuff up here until the water wasn't coming through blue anymore. That is not a lot of silver. Not a lot of silver at all. Alright, I'm going to let the pump run until it's not dripping anymore. And we'll see if we can figure out just how much silver we have here. I got some ideas. I mean, doesn't look like much, but we might be able to weigh it anyway. All right, I think this is about as dry as the pump's gonna get it. So I cleaned up this beaker. Take the filter out. Yeah, there's not very much silver here at all. Put it in the beaker. I'll put this on low heat and we'll evaporate the moisture off. And then we can weigh a new filter, tear the scale, and then weigh this filter. I don't know. May not be worth the effort, but at least we could calculate some kind of yield, small though it may be. All right, let me get that on the heat so that we can proceed from here. All right, let's see if we got enough silver here to even weigh. This filter is nice and dry and crispy. Here's an unused filter of the same type. Put it on there. Tear it. There we go, 0. Okay. 6 grams. We got a whole 6 grams of silver. Was that worth all the toxic smoke and treating the ashes with nitric acid and re-cementing the silver with copper? I don't know. You know, maybe if we'd had more, it might have been worth it. But I think 6 grams is pretty pathetic showing for all that effort. So, anyway, so let's calculate a yield. Let's see exactly what our yield here was. All right, so we had 516 grams of these Mylars to start with, and we got 6 grams of silver out, so that gives us a yield of about 1.16%, which I guess is not horrible, but I mean, that's a pathetically small amount of silver for all the effort I went to. Maybe if we had a whole bunch more of it to do, it'd be worth it, but I don't know if I want to smoke up the neighborhood that bad. Let's see, in my last Mylar video, where I just shredded them and soaked them in nitric acid for a couple of weeks, I got a 1.8% yield. So, you know, without the smoke and the fireworks and all that. So, yeah, the only reason I burned these was because they were covered with some sort of sticky goo, and I didn't think that the nitric acid would be able to get to them. And they sure looked like they should have had a lot of silver in them. They had heavy traces. They had heavy button sections. They looked like they should have had a lot of silver there, but there was also a lot of excess Mylar there with no silver on it. So, you know, 1.16%. So what am I going to do with this pathetic small amount of silver? Well, I'll hold on to it, and the next time I melt some of Johnny's silver, I'll add this to it. It all adds up, even, you know, 6 grams worth. All right. Well, if you guys found this video at all interesting, educational, informative, inspirational, whatever, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to see my future videos. I got a lot more work to do for Johnny. I got some of my own stuff to do. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching this one. Bye.